Who are you? Are you a random blob of chemicals just trying to survive? Is there meaning in anything, or are actions just bent on pursuing pleasure and happiness? Emptiness is one of the fundamental issues that faces each one of us when we look at our lives. Such a fundamental question requires a fundamental answer. I believe it begins in the beginning with how we are created. Genesis describes the creation of the world, a world created by a God who cares intimately about his creation. But today, Genesis gets little respect, and the question of who you are suffers. We favor evolution or science, just a collection of facts to look to. But if we don't respect Genesis, we lose respect and focus on who we are. But is the Genesis account itself respectable? I believe it is. I believe every person should respect the Genesis account. Let me give you a few reasons why I believe this is true. First and foremost, I believe the Genesis account has only been proved more over time. See, time itself has a beginning, and the universe had a beginning. But this is not something that's obvious. Science always assumed that everything was steady state. Everything just always existed. The Genesis account said that it was created. Sure enough, what do we find? The universe itself was created. Same thing with light. You know, it was not obvious that light itself is a creation, or that it was the first of creation. And yet what has science shown? That light is a creation. It's something that now exists that didn't. And it was created first. Radioactivity was the very first signs of creation. The fossil record has only confirmed that evolutionary explanations are weak and unsupported. So over time, the Genesis account only gets more and more true. The second reason I believe you should respect the Genesis account is the Genesis account represents all we need to know. Maybe not all that we want to know, but it's all we need to know. For example, the Genesis account indicates that God intervened. It talks about 7 days of creation. Maybe the laws of physics were bent on each of those days of creation. It says very clearly that God worked. In other words, God did something. And so maybe that's what happened. We don't know, but it's all we need to know. We also see in Genesis that it talks about that the entire universe was created in 7 days. Well, what does science find? Science finds that that time itself is relative to the observer. In other words, God could give an explanation of all that we need to know, which is the earth was created in 7 24-hour time periods. But from a different observer, that could have been a long period of time. In other words, time itself is relative, and so we have no reason to doubt when God tells us in Genesis that the earth and everything that we see was created in 7 days. Ideas like the Big Bang end up becoming just a subset of a better understanding of creation itself. Modern physics, we see that the speed of light, is required to be able to understand the aging of the universe. Sometimes we wonder, well, the universe seems to be billions of years old, and Genesis can't explain that. But actually, what science finds is 10 to the minus 30th seconds and less, there's no physics. In other words, the speed of light is not a constant. It could be near infinite. And if the speed of light was near infinite, then in a very quick, very 10 to the minus 30th seconds, the entire universe could just expand out and become what it is. And if you try to apply steady state laws, it now looks like billions of years. But the truth is that you cannot extrapolate all the way back because the laws of physics have changed. So that second reason I want to give you is that the Genesis account represents all we need to know. The last reason I want to give you why you should respect Genesis is the Genesis account explains the origin of both the physical and the metaphysical. See, science can't explain love and justice. They only think of those as social constructs or just chemicals in our brains. Life is simply a series of chemical processes and there's no meaning. But the Genesis account rings true to our common sense because the Genesis account tells us about the origin of metaphysical concepts like love and justice and sacrifice, that those things are real and meaningful. They're not just social constructs. So in conclusion, I've provided you 3 reasons why you should respect Genesis. It matters. Psalm 139 says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully created, and my soul knows it full well. I want to ask you to post that on a mirror. Post Psalm 139 on a mirror, and every day you read it, just remind yourself, I'm so glad I can respect the Genesis account as all that I need to know. It's something that's been proven over time, and it's something that explains everything, both the physical and the metaphysical.